I said it was just work, but the black man took me somewhere else. Disclaimer. This content is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on an ordinary Thursday evening, the kind that drags on forever. The office lights buzzed above me, and the stale air smelled like burnt coffee and cheap perfume. My husband had already texted twice asking when I'd be home, but I kept replying with the same excuse. Still at work. I told myself it wasn't a lie, not completely. I was technically with a colleague going over a project. But deep down, I knew I was crossing into a space that wasn't just about work anymore. His name was Marcus. Tall, calm, and confident in a way that made people pay attention without him saying much. He had this way of looking at you like he saw everything you were trying to hide. I'd known him for a few months, but that night felt different. He suggested we take a short drive to clear our heads. I hesitated. Every part of me said it wasn't a good idea. Yet I found myself walking beside him. The sound of my heels echoing through the parking lot. The city lights blurred as we drove through the quiet streets. He didn't say much, just small talk, music playing low, and that subtle smile that made me uneasy. I kept thinking about my husband, about how distant we'd become lately, how our conversations had turned into reminders about bills, groceries, and the never-ending to-do lists. It had been so long since someone looked at me the way Marcus did. But then he turned off the main road and headed somewhere unfamiliar. My pulse quickened. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He just smiled and said, "Somewhere I think you need to see." Something about the way he said it, low, certain, unhurried, made my heart pound harder. I didn't know if I was more curious or afraid. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just another late-night work talk. This was something else. Something I didn't see coming. And for the first time I realized I might have stepped into something I couldn't easily explain. Not to my husband, not even to myself. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know what you think. Have you ever been in a situation where curiosity pulled you into something unexpected? Drop your thoughts in the comments or vote in the poll. What would you have done if you were in my place? Because trust me, the next part changes everything. The car slowed as we reached the edge of town, where the city lights faded into open space and quiet roads. I looked out the window and realized I didn't recognize this part of the city. It was darker here, calmer and a little eerie. Marcus seemed completely at ease, one hand on the wheel, his eyes steady ahead. I tried to keep my voice casual when I asked again. "So where exactly are we going?" He chuckled softly. "Relax," he said, glancing at me for just a second. "You've been running on fumes all week. I just figured you could use a break. Away from emails, deadlines, all that noise." His tone was reassuring, yet it left me with more questions than answers. A part of me wanted to trust him, to believe that maybe he was just being kind. But another part of me wondered if I'd just made a mistake I couldn't take back. I turned my phone over in my hand, staring at the blank screen. My husband's last message still glowed in my mind. "Don't stay too late. You need rest." I'd ignored it, and for the first time guilt started to crawl its way in. But then Marcus spoke again and his voice pulled me back. "You ever think about what you really want?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" I replied, pretending not to understand. He smiled slightly. "You spend all this time doing things for everyone else, your boss, your family, your husband. But what about you? When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to?" The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't have an answer. Maybe that was the problem. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped asking myself what I wanted. The road curved and suddenly I saw faint lights ahead. A small cafe sitting quietly near an old bridge. It looked out of place, almost forgotten yet inviting. He parked the car and got out, walking around to open my door. "Come on," he said softly. "You'll like this place." Inside, the cafe was warm, filled with the faint smell of cinnamon and old wood. Only a few people sat scattered around, mostly older folks sipping coffee and talking quietly. The air felt different here, peaceful but heavy, like a place where people came to think about things they didn't say out loud. Marcus ordered 2 coffees and sat across from me, his gaze steady but unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You remind me of someone I used to know. She used to hide behind work too. Thought if she kept busy enough, she wouldn't have to face what was missing." I shifted in my seat, unsure what to say. It felt like he could see straight through me. And what happened to her? I finally asked. He paused, then smiled faintly. She stopped pretending, he said. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else. Something that made me question every decision that brought me to that moment. The ticking of the old clock behind the counter sounded louder with each second. I looked at Marcus, trying to read what was behind his calm expression. Why did you bring me here? I asked quietly. He leaned forward, his voice low. Because sometimes, you need to get lost to remember who you are. His words lingered in the air, unsettling and comforting all at once. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the windows. I stared at the dark road beyond the glass, wondering if I'd already gone too far, or if this was exactly where I was supposed to be. Before I could ask another question, his phone buzzed, and the look that flashed across his face wasn't calm anymore. Something had changed. And in that moment, I realized I didn't really know this man at all. What do you think was in that message? And do you believe people meet for a reason, or by accident? Tell me in the comments below, because what happened next? I still struggle to explain. Marcus's phone buzzed again, and this time he didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked toward the screen, then back to me. The change in his expression was subtle but noticeable. A small tightening in his jaw, a shift in his calmness. I could feel something in the air shift too, that kind of silence where you know something's about to happen but you can't tell what. He finally picked up the phone, standing from the table and stepping away toward the window. His voice dropped low, too quiet for me to make out words, but his tone wasn't the same. It was serious, concerned, maybe even frustrated. I sat there pretending to look around the cafe, but my mind was spinning. Who was calling him? Why did he suddenly look like someone with secrets of his own? When he came back, his smile was gone. Sorry about that, he said, sliding his phone into his jacket pocket. Something came up at work. We might have to cut the evening short. His words sounded rehearsed, like something he'd said before, maybe to someone else. I tried to play it off. It's fine, I said. I should probably head home anyway. But deep down, a strange curiosity kept tugging at me. He looked distracted, and I wasn't sure if it was about work or something more personal. We left the cafe and walked toward the car. The night had grown colder, the air sharper. When we reached the car, Marcus stopped suddenly and looked at me. You trust me, right? He asked. The question caught me off guard. I hesitated before replying, I don't know yet. He gave a small nod, like he respected the honesty, then opened the car door for me. The drive back was quiet at first. The music played softly, but neither of us seemed to be listening. My thoughts kept circling around everything that had happened. The sudden invitation, the strange cafe, the phone call. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt like I had stepped into a part of Marcus's life that he didn't mean for me to see. Then out of nowhere he asked, Does your husband know you're unhappy? The question stung. I turned to him, caught between anger and confusion. What makes you think I'm unhappy? He glanced at me for a second, then said, You didn't have to say it. It's all over your face. I wanted to deny it, to defend my marriage, but the truth was harder to hide than I thought. Things at home had been tense for months. Late-night arguments that ended in silence, the growing distance between us, the way I'd started staying late at work just to avoid the quiet. Marcus had noticed what I'd been trying to ignore. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again, this time louder, more insistent. He didn't even look at it. Instead, he turned off the main road again, this time onto a narrow path that led toward a row of old houses. I felt my heartbeat quicken. Marcus, I said quietly, where are we going now? He didn't answer right away. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. There's something I need to show you, he finally said, his voice steady but distant. The car came to a stop in front of a small house with dim lights glowing through the curtains. The place looked lived in but lonely. He turned off the engine and looked straight ahead for a moment before turning to me. I wasn't completely honest with you, he said quietly. About work. Or about why I asked you to come tonight. The air between us thickened. I didn't know if I wanted to hear what came next, but I couldn't look away. Whatever he was about to tell me, it wasn't just about a project anymore. It was something deeper. Something that connected us in a way I didn't yet understand. Have you ever felt like someone was hiding a truth that could change everything? What would you do if you were sitting in that car? Let me know in the comments because the moment he spoke next, my whole idea of who he was began to unravel. The silence inside the car felt heavier than the night outside. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and uneven. Marcus's words hung between us. I wasn't completely honest with you. My throat went dry, and for a moment, I didn't know if I wanted him to keep talking or just start the car and drive me home. But his expression told me that whatever he was about to say would change everything. He looked out the window, then back at me. Do you remember the day we first met? The meeting about the marketing proposal. I nodded slowly. That wasn't a coincidence, he said quietly. I was asked to join that team because of you. My breath caught. Because of me? I repeated, trying to make sense of it. He nodded. Someone wanted me to watch you, to see if you were loyal. I felt my stomach twist. What are you talking about? Who would do that? He hesitated, his eyes shifting toward the house ahead. Your husband, he said finally. He reached out to me through a mutual contact. Said he thought you were hiding something. That you'd been distant, distracted. His words hit me like a wave, each one heavier than the last. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. That's not possible. He wouldn't. But Marcus cut me off softly. He did. I didn't plan for this to happen, but the more time we spent together, the more I realized he was wrong about you. He paused. And that's when I made a mistake. I stopped following instructions. I sat frozen, trying to process what I was hearing. My husband had sent someone to watch me. Marcus had known this the entire time. And yet he had brought me here, told me half-truths, acted like he cared. Anger, confusion, and betrayal all fought for space inside me. So this whole night was what? Part of his plan. Marcus shook his head quickly. No, not anymore. I brought you here because I needed to tell you the truth before things got worse. He's been watching both of us. He knows we left together tonight. My pulse started racing. What do you mean watching us? Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen showed a series of messages, ones I wasn't supposed to see. There were photos, timestamps, and short texts from a number I recognized too well. My husband's. I felt the air leave my lungs. You need to understand, Marcus said quickly. He's not who you think he is. There's more going on than you realize. And if we don't leave now, he'll find us before I can explain everything. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The man sitting next to me had lied, but his fear looked real. His voice shook slightly now, and the tension in his shoulders told me he wasn't pretending. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, and for a second, I thought I saw movement near the side of the house. A shadow, quick and quiet. Marcus turned his head sharply toward the window. We need to go, he said under his breath. Now. My hand hovered over the door handle, but my mind was still trying to catch up. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet curiosity and disbelief rooted me in place. Marcus, what's going on? Why would my husband? Before I could finish, a beam of light cut through the darkness, a car pulling into the narrow driveway. Headlights glared through the windshield, bright and blinding. Marcus's jaw tightened. He's here, he said. My breath hitched as the sound of a car door slammed shut outside. Someone was coming toward us, slow and deliberate. Marcus reached for my hand, his eyes locking with mine. You have to trust me now, he whispered. Please. And in that moment, trapped between truth and danger, between two men I thought I knew, I realized this night wasn't about work, or even betrayal. It was about survival. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you stay and demand answers or run before it was too late? Tell me in the comments because what happened next changed everything. The headlights cut across the windshield, flooding the car in harsh white light. My pulse pounded in my ears as Marcus reached to turn off the interior lights, his movements quick but careful. Outside, the sound of footsteps crunched against the gravel, steady and deliberate. I froze, my breath shallow. Whoever was out there wasn't in a hurry. They wanted us to know they were coming. Marcus leaned closer. Stay quiet, he whispered, his voice low and urgent. Don't move until I say. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I could stay still. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but my legs felt heavy, locked in place by fear and confusion. The footsteps stopped right outside the driver's side door. A faint tapping sound followed. Knuckles against the window. Then a voice, calm but chillingly familiar, broke through the silence. "Marcus! Open the door." It was my husband. Marcus stiffened. His jaw clenched as he whispered. He wasn't supposed to find us this fast. My mind went blank. I stared at him, trying to understand how any of this was real. "You said he didn't know where we were," I hissed. Marcus shook his head. "He shouldn't have. Unless." His eyes darted toward the dashboard, then to the phone in his pocket. He unlocked it quickly and scrolled through something before cursing under his breath. "He's been tracking me," he said. He planted a GPS app through one of his messages. The realization hit both of us at once. My husband had been monitoring Marcus's every move, which meant he'd known about tonight before we even left the office. The knocking came again, louder this time. "I'm not going to ask twice," my husband's voice said, still eerily calm. "Open the door or I will." Marcus turned to me. "We have two choices," he said quietly. "Stay and face him, or leave right now and I'll tell you everything." I looked through the fogged window and saw the faint outline of my husband's face illuminated by the headlights behind him. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. That scared me even more. He just stood there, waiting like a man who already knew the ending. Before I could answer, the driver's door handle rattled. Once, then again harder. Marcus started the engine, and the sound shattered the tense silence. My husband pounded on the glass, shouting something I couldn't make out over the roar of the car. Marcus shifted into reverse, tires crunching over gravel as we backed away. But as we pulled onto the road, something unexpected happened. A second set of headlights appeared from the opposite direction. Another car speeding toward us, its engine revving. "What the?" Marcus swore, gripping the wheel tightly. The approaching car swerved, blocking the road ahead. We came to a screeching stop. The other car's door opened and a man stepped out, someone I didn't recognize. He looked straight at Marcus, not me. "You shouldn't have told her," the man said flatly. "You just made things worse for everyone." My stomach dropped. "Who is that?" I asked, but Marcus didn't answer. His face went pale, his eyes wide with realization. "It's not just your husband," he whispered. "There's more to this than you think." I turned toward the stranger, but before I could say anything, he lifted something small and dark from his jacket. A phone recording us. He pointed it toward me. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "You were never supposed to know." The air inside the car grew thick with fear. Marcus's hand hovered near the gear shift, ready to act, but his voice trembled slightly when he spoke. "If we don't leave now," he muttered, "we might not get another chance." I didn't understand what any of it meant, why my husband had sent Marcus, who this new man was, or what secret they were both hiding. But as the stranger stepped closer to the car, his expression unreadable, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just caught between two men anymore. I was trapped in something far bigger than I could have imagined. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted the truth, or if knowing it would destroy everything I had left. What do you think was the real reason Marcus brought me here? And who do you believe that man really is? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, because the next part changes everything. The man's phone kept recording as he stepped closer, his voice calm but sharp. "You don't understand what you've stepped into," he said, eyes fixed on Marcus. The cold air rushed through the open car window, carrying his words like a warning. My pulse thudded in my ears. I could feel the weight of every choice I'd made. Staying late at work, agreeing to that drive, walking into the cafe. Somehow it had all led to this moment. Marcus kept one hand tight on the wheel, his other gripping the door handle. "You don't need to involve her," he said quietly. "She has nothing to do with this anymore." The man laughed softly. "That's where you're wrong. She's the reason this started." His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw a flicker of pity there. "You really didn't know, did you?" My voice shook. "Know what?" The man looked at Marcus before answering. "Your husband didn't hire Marcus to spy on you. He hired him to protect you." The words hit me like a jolt. I turned to Marcus, confused. "Protect me? From what?" Marcus's expression changed. Guilt? Regret? Something deeper than fear. "It's true," he said softly. "I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd believe me. Your husband found out someone was watching you. Not him, someone else. He thought it was connected to work. Maybe someone following you after hours. He glanced at the man outside. That's him. Or part of the group behind it. I looked between them, trying to piece it all together. So you're saying this was never about my marriage? The stranger shook his head. You've been caught in the middle of something that has nothing to do with love or jealousy. Your company's project, the one you've been working late on, it's not what you think. There are people who do anything to get their hands on that data. You were just the easiest way in. Marcus started the car again, his tone tense. We need to go now. But before he could move, another sound cut through the night, the sharp wail of a siren in the distance. The stranger stepped back, lowering his phone. You think you can outrun this? He said. You have no idea how deep it goes. Marcus didn't wait. He slammed the gear into drive, swerving past the man's car and speeding down the dark road. I clung to the seat, my thoughts racing. Marcus, what's happening? Why didn't you tell me any of this? He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the road, his face pale under the dashboard light. Because I thought I could fix it before it reached you, he said finally. But I was wrong. Your husband isn't as innocent as you think. He didn't just want to protect you. He wanted to control what you knew. My heart sank. So who's telling the truth? I whispered. Marcus looked at me, and the look in his eyes said everything, even he wasn't sure anymore. We reached the highway, the sirens fading behind us. For a brief moment it felt like we'd escaped. Then Marcus's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and froze. Without a word he handed it to me. It was a text from my husband. Just 4 words. You're with the wrong man. The car went silent. I stared at the screen, realizing I didn't know who to believe. The man beside me, the one chasing us, or the husband waiting somewhere in the dark. As the road stretched endlessly ahead, I finally understood that the truth wasn't going to save me. It was going to break everything I thought I knew. What would you have done in that moment? Trusted the man you barely knew, or gone back to the one who might have deceived you all along? Tell me your thoughts below, because the ending to this story is just the beginning of another. Marcus drove for what felt like hours, the road stretching endlessly through the dark countryside. Neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of rain starting to fall against the windshield. The message from my husband still glowed on Marcus's phone. You're with the wrong man. The words replayed in my mind, each time feeling heavier. Finally, Marcus pulled over near an old rest stop. He turned off the car and sat in silence, his hands gripping the steering wheel like he was afraid to let go. You deserve to know everything, he said quietly. No more lies. I nodded, though part of me wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. He looked straight ahead as he spoke. Your husband hired me months ago. He said he was worried about you, that someone was watching you outside your office. At first I thought he was just being protective, but then I started noticing things too. Cars parked across from your building that didn't belong to anyone there. Messages on your work server from unknown sources. I tried to dig deeper, and that's when I realized your husband wasn't just protecting you. He was protecting himself. I frowned. Protecting himself from what? Marcus sighed. The project you've been working on, it's not just a marketing proposal. It's connected to a private security contract your company's been funding. Sensitive information. Your husband was involved through a partner company, and someone wanted leverage. They used you without you ever knowing. The truth settled like a stone in my chest. All the strange moments suddenly made sense. The late-night calls, his distant behavior, his sudden interest in my work. He wasn't suspicious of me because of another man. He was afraid I'd stumble onto something that could expose him. So the man who showed up tonight, I asked, he wasn't with my husband? Marcus shook his head. No. He was part of the group trying to find out what your husband was hiding. That's why he said you weren't supposed to know, because you were never meant to be involved. The rain fell harder now, drumming against the roof as the truth settled between us. I stared out the window, watching the streaks of light slide down the glass. So what happens now? I asked softly. Marcus looked at me, his voice calm but firm. Now you go home. You act like tonight never happened. Let the people involved clean up their mess. You don't owe anyone an explanation. I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew he was right. I couldn't fix what had already been broken. I could only decide what came next. When he dropped me off near my street, the city was still quiet. The familiar sight of my house felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. Before I got out, Marcus said, "Be careful who you trust, okay? Sometimes the people closest to you have the most to lose." I nodded, meeting his eyes one last time. "Thank you," I said. He gave a faint smile, then drove away into the dark. Inside, the house was silent. My husband was asleep on the couch, his phone still glowing on the coffee table. I looked at him for a long moment, the man I thought I knew, and for the first time I didn't feel anger, just distance. That night I deleted every message, every trace of what happened. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I finally understood something. Sometimes the truth doesn't bring peace. It brings clarity. And as I lay awake watching the first light of morning filter through the curtains, I realized that trust isn't about knowing everything. It's about deciding who you'll believe, even when the story doesn't make sense. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you search for every answer? Or walk away once you've learned enough to protect your peace? Because sometimes walking away is the ending that saves you.